Hello, welcome to PHI 1600. My name is Dave Monroe and I'll be your professor for this course. And I'd like to start the semester by giving you guys a little video to watch to help orient you through the class so you have some understanding of what the class is about. You know how to find things in my courses, and then to talk a little bit about the expectations that we'll have as we proceed through the semester. So first of all, let me encourage any of you who are new to online education, meaning you've taken one or maybe none, no online classes before, to make sure that you do the introduction to my courses that will help you understand a little bit more about how the learning management system works. And I'll show you where to find that briefly. But if you are a seasoned online veteran, then this probably won't be too hard to navigate. But let's start before we get to the technical stuff by thinking a little bit about the class. This class is called Studies in Applied Ethics, and that probably gives you some indication of what the class is going to be about, right? So the sort of key concepts of ethics are good and bad, right and wrong, right? So they have to do with evaluations about things and judgments about the rightness or wrongness of social institutions, people's character, our individual actions, and so on. Right. Now, usually when people start this class, they ask themselves, why the heck do I have to take a class about good and bad, right and wrong? I already understand all of that stuff. And that may be true. You may have some background beliefs about good and bad, right and wrong. But the purpose of this class is to help us come to understand, using certain philosophical or critical thinking methods, that there are a variety of different ways of thinking about the questions of good and bad, right and wrong. There are various points of view on those questions, and it may just be that while we have our view, there are other different, maybe equally persuasive or interesting views out there that would be worth our time to study. The sort of backbone of this class really is about learning how to think through ethical questions for yourself. Right? So try as we get into this class to step back from our sort of preconditioned beliefs about what we think ethics should be, right? And study the material on its own merits and think through these very difficult human questions that we're going to be confronting. In fact, some years ago, an ancient Greek philosopher named Socrates was having a conversation with his friend, and his friend said, basically, what are the questions that get us interested in life? And Socrates' answer was, well, it's not math and science. I mean, those are important, but those are questions about facts, right? The sorts of questions that really keep us up at night, that put us at odds with each other, that make us sometimes do crazy things, sometimes do wonderful things, is our beliefs about values, right? About things like good and bad, right and wrong. So it's worth spending some time studying that on your college journey. And this will be a class where you have an opportunity to investigate some of these questions, right? So effectively, the class will be broken into sort of three phases. In the beginning, we'll start by learning some critical thinking skills, right? Most of us think we're independent thinkers, but it turns out that we could probably all use a little practice in learning how to think things through systematically, carefully, and independently. So we'll learn a little bit about processes of good thinking and good decision making, and how to avoid the sort of perils of the nonsense that surrounds us, both in social media, regular media, and everyday life. In addition to that, we'll learn about a variety of different points of view or answers to the questions good and bad, right and wrong, and what those things are. And we'll use our critical thinking skills to work through that. And then finally, towards the end of the class, we'll think about these ideas in relation to contemporary moral problems, right? The sorts of things that are making our world challenging to navigate, or at least ambiguous from an ethical question about how we should proceed or how we should act in terms of certain questions, like things like the environment or end of life decision making, or how we distribute scarce medical resources and so on, which hits a little close to home these days, I imagine. So that's basically what the class is about. And I think it's a lot of fun if you are open-minded about it and get into it, right? But I do want you to bear in mind that this class is as much about value judgments and forming them for yourself as it is about facts, right? So don't be frustrated if you find that sometimes you're confused or the answers don't seem clear, right? So some of the historical stuff we'll study will be more like that, but as we work through assignments, a lot of it will be asking you to do some thinking for yourself, right? So that's the basic gist of what ethics is about. And as we dive in, you'll see more. But let me move on to just a quick technical orientation of my courses to sort of show you where things are and how things are set up. Share my screen here. Okay, so my courses is the learning management system for St. Petersburg College. And when you log in, you should land on a page that looks a little bit like this, if not exactly like that, where you scroll down and you'll find the list of classes that you have over here on your left that you belong to or you're taking. So I'm going to click into this class here, which is either your class or one exactly like it, and take you to the home page. And I'm going to change my view to the student view so that I'll be displaying it the way that you guys will see it. Okay, so here we are. This is the front page of our website for PHI 1600. Okay, if you want to get to where all of the lessons are, you'll find all of that stuff under this heading, course content. That includes things like the syllabus and access to orientation materials, where you'll find all of the assignments, where you'll find all the learning materials, etc. The communicate tab allows you to email me, but there's a much easier way to do that. If you scroll down here and click on email faculty, it will give you an opportunity to send me an email directly, right? So if you need to get in touch with me, that's one way to do it. More on that shortly. If you want to look at your grades, you can click over here. And so on, right? So these links can help you sort of communicate and find some stuff. All right, now I'm scrolling down just a bit to show you guys one of the most important parts of our class before we get into some of the nitty gritty of the content area. You see this little widget here that says McGraw-Hill Connect right here on the front. This is an important thing because this is where our textbook is located, right? So for this class, there isn't an independent textbook that you have to go get from somewhere. The textbook is actually integrated directly into my courses. So you access that here through the McGraw-Hill Connect area. What you'll need to do is click on the link that shows up. It won't look exactly like this, but you need to click on the link that shows up. It will ask you to create a McGraw-Hill Connect account if you don't already have one. Put in an email and password, sign up for it, and then you'll be able to access the textbook. Now, there's a much more robust video about the textbook process and how to get to it. It's linked in the introduction to the course. So watch that video. It will talk you through the whole thing step by step. But do understand right off the bat, there is no outside textbook for the class. It's all integrated into the course materials. And it's through this area on the front page of my courses that you'll access our ebook. So as you scroll down, you see that there's a calendar on the right-hand side that tells you when things are due. There's also a calendar tab at the top of the page. The link to how to access the textbook and get everything set up is right here. Click on that, it will talk you through the process. It's relatively simple when it comes down to it. But if you have any questions, of course, let me know. Okay, so the rest of that's just sort of the sort of preamble to the class, some of which I just talked through and some of which I'll go through in a little bit. But that's basically the front page there, right? The key thing here, really more than anything else, is that you access the textbook from our course front page, right? Now, to get into all the goodies for the class, the learning material, the lessons, the videos, the notes, the quizzes, the drop boxes, and all that sort of stuff, click on the course content. Right? Now that's going to open up the table of contents, as you can see here. Off to the left, you'll see that there's a kind of linear version of it that lays out things. And I have everything arranged sequentially. So basically, if you start at the top and work your way through, that'll follow the trajectory for the semester. But over here at the top left, just below the search area, you'll see the tab for the syllabus, or the link to the syllabus. If you click that, it will take you to the syllabus page. And let me just say briefly something about your course syllabi in college. It's a good idea always to download and keep the syllabus from every class that you take. Part of that is for your own records. It's always good to have on hand, just in case you transfer to a different school or university. You may get credit for this class somewhere else. If you hang on to the syllabus, you can prove that you've already learned what they want you to learn, and you won't have to pay twice for the same kinds of classes and for the same basic credits. Also understand that the syllabus is sort of like a contract for us, right? So what I lay out in the syllabus sets out the expectations for you as a student and for me as an instructor. So it's really important that you understand what those expectations are. So one of the first orders of business for you will be to go through the course syllabus carefully, read it as closely as possible, so that you have a clear understanding of what the expectations for the class are. In fact, in your first module, the quiz will cover the syllabus, so I'm confident that you'll read it and go through it, but you can find it first at this syllabus link, okay? Now, going back to the table of contents, you'll notice as you look at this page over here on the right, there's a whole bunch of modules listed, but it doesn't really show anything, right? Now, that's because these content modules are closed, and in order to open one up where you can actually see the content, if you look over here on the right, you see a little triangle pointing towards the right of your screen. If you click on that, it will drop down all of the information in that module. So you'll be able to see the different stuff that's in there and so on, right? So you can expand the modules that way, or if you scroll over to the, or look over to the left, you can click into the module through the table of contents on the side. So this one's fairly important. The first day textbook access, how to get to the moral compass. Again, that's going to be explained in the link to the video that I showed you guys before, but you want to get in there pretty quickly and understand what this is all about, how to get the textbook, because we will use it, okay? Let me be clear right up front as we start to go through the content of this class. You will need the textbook and we will use it, right? So make sure that you figure out how to access it and how to get into it. Practically from the beginning, we'll be using the textbook. Secondly, everything in this class assumes that you've done the reading, that you've watched the videos, and you've looked at the class notes, right? So when you start working on the assignments, they'll be very, very confusing unless you make sure that you've done the textbook reading first, right? So keep that in mind as you're going through things. It's not uncommon. Practically every semester, I get frustrated emails from students who say, I don't understand what's going on. And my first question is, have you read the textbook? And the answer is no. So, well, that's why you don't understand what's going on, right? So you have to do your side of this. And your side of this means accessing the textbook, following along with the material, making sure you're doing the reading and doing your studying and so on, right? And that will prepare you for the assignments. Don't just start trying to do the work and Googling to find answers, because that's not going to help you. Okay, so going back over here to the left, you can see we've got a series of modules laid out. I've got a couple optional things here. One is a kind of maybe a chat room for you all, a place to connect if you decide you want to talk about or have conversations about ethical things that aren't necessarily connected to class. You just want to talk about sports, whatever, right? So there's a social module with a discussion board in there where you can talk amongst yourselves about whatever. I also have a link here to my virtual office hours. I'll be keeping office hours for your class on Wednesday and Sunday evenings from 7 to 8 p.m. Now we can set appointments to meet at different times than that if you need help, but this is the link to get, excuse me, to open my virtual office. Now it's via Zoom. I'll have the Zoom open. To join me, all you have to do is click on this link and click through. Now you have to have Zoom to do that. At this point, it's hard to imagine anyone in the world doesn't have Zoom. But if you need it, there's a link to download it right here. And there's a support link there in case you run into issues with software, stuff like that. Typically speaking, we won't use Zoom for anything else unless I decide to have some real-time event or we have real-time extra credit opportunities, which sometimes do happen. So it may be a good idea to have Zoom downloaded in any case. All right, so as you get into, I'm just gonna jump a little bit further ahead. As you get into a module here, let's look at week 3. It's got some interesting stuff. Each of them is laid out essentially the same way. You have kind of an overview to start, right? This is what the module is about. And that overview concludes with a checklist, right? The things that you need to do to successfully complete the module, right? So don't just skip past this stuff. Make sure you take the time to read it and say, okay, here's what needs to be done. And then as you scroll down, you'll find the learning materials for each module. That would include things like notes and videos, and then down to the assignments, right? So that's in a kind of sequence. Start by reading the overview, do the learning materials, and then come to the assignments, right? As you click into the assignment submodule, you'll find basically instructions for whatever your assignment is, drop boxes for those assignments, which is where you'll submit and upload those, discussion forums, and quizzes, right? So there are basically 3 kinds of assignments for this class. You have short papers that you'll write, you have discussion forums that you'll participate in where you talk with each other, and then you'll have a quiz, right? Also, most modules have an extra credit drop box. If you want to do a little bit of extra work, I'll give you extra points. Uh, Basically, each module that we have, so module week 1, week 2, and so on, correspond to a week of the semester. So we'll do basically chapter 1, week 1, chapter 2, week 2, and then that pattern recurs. The work for each module is due on the Sunday night of the end of the week that we've been studying it. So that's all listed. If you click into one of these modules, the due dates are all there for you to see, right? So it tells you when these things close and when they end, right? Meaning they're no longer available for you to see when they're due. So pay attention to due dates. Those also show up in the calendar function. You'll see them listed along the right of our My Courses homepage. Now, I do want to say just a little bit about the due dates in these modules. The world is a complete mess right now, and we're all pretty well aware of that. In fact, if you're not aware of that, probably time to come out from underneath the rocks that you've been staying under. But there is every possibility that you or someone close to you or someone that you take care of or your work or something will be disrupted or made ill by the pandemic and everything else that's going on, right? So in these circumstances, I understand that we have to be a little bit flexible about when things are due and when they're not, okay? So basically, the deal is this. Every module is due the week that we're using it or that we're studying it, right? But apart from or except the discussion forum, I will accept quizzes and the papers late with no penalty for the entire semester, okay? That's to give you guys some breathing room in case something goes wrong. You have to miss a week because you've got some family crisis or you get sick or something like that. That's to give you guys the space and grace to catch up, right? This is going to be a tough semester with everything going on. So I want you guys to have the opportunity to have some flexibility. Now, the discussion forums you need to complete every week if possible. And that's because I use those to mark attendance. And if you can't do a discussion post, please do let me know via email or a text message to my Google Voice account. The link for that's in the syllabus. But yeah, the quizzes and papers, however, because especially the papers will take a little bit more work, I want you guys to have the time to catch up. So I will accept all late work without penalty until April 24th. With the exception of the discussion forums, right? So those need to be done as we go along. So when you look at the assignments here, you notice that it says ends April 24th, that ends April 24th, and so on. So do your best to keep up, right? It doesn't do well to fall behind and let the work stack up. But if you do happen to fall behind, it's possible to catch up and not have it hurt you too badly. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and go back to the regular view. And I promise I won't take too much more of your time with this video, but there are a couple important points and expectations I want to lay out as we get the semester underway. First, and I can't stress this one enough, my job in this class is to help you learn the material. I understand this stuff pretty well. I think you guys will see that as we go through the semester. Many of the videos that you watch are ones that I have made, and I'm also one of the authors of the textbook, for which I don't get royalties, by the way. But I do understand the subject matter, and it's my job to help you understand it. And I don't assume that you already do, okay? One of the great mistakes we make in education is in thinking that there's something wrong with us if we have questions and have to ask for help. But that's nuts, because the whole reason you're a student is that you don't know a subject, right? The point is that we professors here are meant to help and guide you through the material. So if you have questions about what you're learning, if you have questions about the assignments, if you have questions about the way that the class works, please ask. It's my job to help you, right? And I'm happy to do it. But I won't know if you're struggling unless you communicate that to me, right? Which is really, really important. We have to have open lines of communication. So you have to feel free to ask me questions. Don't be afraid of feeling like nervous or intimidated. That's my job, right? And I don't assume that you know in advance. I assume that you don't. And it's my job to help fill that gap, right? So if you have questions, ask. With that said, let me just say a little bit more about my office hours, right? So I'm happy to meet anytime. I have a pretty flexible schedule that dedicated Wednesday and Sunday nights from 7 to 8 will be available just for your class. So just hop on that Zoom and hit me with any question that you have. I also have an office phone number where you can leave voicemails. I usually don't answer it because most of the calls that I get are for extending my car's warranty, which I'll bet you guys get too. But I'll call you back immediately if it's you with a question. I also have a Google Voice line set up where you can send me text messages or call that number. Now, I ask you to be respectful of my Google Voice number because it links to my cell phone. And if you call it weird hours, I might respond at equally weird hours. I tend to go to bed fairly early and get up early also. So please keep in mind that I'm an old man who goes to bed early and don't call or text late at night. But I will respond as soon as I am able to your texts. Now, the official expectations of the college, and I abide by these, is that I'll respond to any email I get to you within 24 hours during the week or within 48 hours on the weekend. I'm usually a lot faster than that, as you guys will probably see as the semester goes on. You can also count on prompt and timely feedback on your assignments. I'll do my best to turn your grades around within a day or so. It sometimes takes me a little longer to grade papers just because there's more for me to think about. But the whole point of that is so you always know where you stand and you understand where you have room for growth, right? So as I grade your assignments, I'm not just grading them for completion. I'm going to give you feedback that says, here's how you did and here's ways that you can improve, right? That's the whole point of education, is to find out ways to get better, right? It's not just to tick the boxes and get an A, right? And this class won't work that way. You'll turn your assignments in, I'll give you feedback. It'll be in a reasonable amount of time. You'll know where you stand, you'll know where to improve and so on. So that's basically the sort of ground rules for communication. I only have one more, and this one I think is really important, right? As opposed to the sort of nuts and bolts stuff. We have, it's maybe appropriate that today is January 6th as I say this. We have this deep lack of respect for each other happening in this country right now. And it's probably worldwide, for all I know. But in this class, because we're going to be talking about different points of view and diverse ideas and different ways of thinking about really important ethical questions, about which we may very deeply disagree, I expect everyone to be respectful in their communication with each other, right? So I expect that you guys will be respectful to me in the emails that you send. I'll be respectful to you in response, right? I expect you to be respectful to each other in discussion forums, right? This is a sort of dying art that we need to repractice and develop, and that's the art of how to disagree, yet do so civilly and respectfully, right? Reasonable people can disagree, and the mere fact of disagreement, the fact that we don't see eye to eye on something, doesn't automatically make the other person crazy or your enemy, right? And that's the way that things have been sort of parsed out in our society lately. Well, if you're not with me, you're against me. That's nonsense. There are all kinds of different points of view about all sorts of different problems, and reasonable people understand that it's possible to have good reasons to believe something or to see things a different way without it automatically being thrown out or nuts or the wrong way to think, right? So you guys have heard it in our political discourse, I'm sure, where we lump ideas into one category. And if that group of people says it, they must be nuts and I won't listen. And if that group of people says it, they must be evil and I won't listen, and so on. We have to get past that really unhealthy framework, right? That way of thinking, that way of talking. As Aristotle, one of the smartest people who's ever lived, once said, the mark of an educated mind is the ability to entertain a thought without accepting it. The mark of an educated mind is the ability to entertain a thought without accepting it. And what Aristotle means by that is this: if you're really an educated person, you should be able to step back emotionally or from your commitments and think about something on its own merits. That doesn't mean you have to agree with it. That doesn't mean you have to believe it. But you should be able to think about it from as neutral a standpoint as we can, right? Be as fair-minded as possible when we're confronted with new ideas or different points of view. It may be that we end up disagreeing with them, but that's fine, right? As long as we take the time to step back and think about something on its own merits, rather than just automatically rejecting it or throwing it out or thinking that it's crazy, dumb, or stupid, right? So you will encounter discussions with people this semester with whom you disagree. They'll have a different point of view on something like abortion or capital punishment or the economy or some of these other things that we'll talk about, end of life decision making and so on. It's okay to disagree. In fact, it's healthy to disagree. But I expect everyone to communicate in respectful and thoughtful ways. I take this very seriously, and I will be somewhat quick to respond if I detect that there's unnecessarily antagonistic or mean language in the discussion forums or in email communications, right? So disagree, but disagree respectfully. That's the standard for the class. So respect in all communication. Also, as much as I check my email virtually daily, you guys probably should too, because I'll send out a lot of information throughout the semester. Get in the habit of checking your college email frequently. That's how I'll post updates and so on. Don't just wait until Sunday to try to do everything, right? That's a bad way to go about it. Check your email early in the week, look at the assignments that you've got and so on. Know if anything is coming up and don't just ambush yourself. Right? Okay, I think that's about all I've got. I'll post another video about week 2. But for now in week 1, your main thing to do is just figure out your way around the course, get access to the textbook, and complete module 1, which is fairly straightforward, right? The main thing that you'll be thinking about is the syllabus, and your discussion forum will be mostly a getting to know you exercise with a little bit of a reflection about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham jail. So that's it for now. If you have questions, please reach out to me via any of the ways listed in the syllabus, and I will do my absolute best to help you at every point this semester. Good luck.